Is the government right to blame the weather for an increase in migrant crossings? 0207 862 2222. Can you get your calls in now? Last Saturday saw nearly 1,200 migrants cross the Channel in small boats from France, which brought the annual total to almost 15,000, 42% higher than the same point last year. Home Office figures show there were twice as many so-called red days, which are days with calmer conditions in the Channel this year. They say that makes the crossings more likely. The Conservatives say, well, Labour shouldn't have cancelled the Rwanda plan. Can the government blame record crossings on the record temperatures, or is the excuse a load of hot air? So, yeah, I don't know. People get so angry about this, don't they, Tim?
Well, it's definitely as an excuse. It is a load of hot air. You can blame the weather for a concentration of crossings, because if it's a bad weather day, people won't cross the Channel, but they're just waiting for another day. And what we know from the overall figures is that more people are crossing the Channel since Labour came to power than in the last year that the Conservatives were into power. So despite all the promise to smash the gangs, the problem is getting worse.
Why did people, I'm not knocking Labour here because they had to say something in the election campaign, but why did people accept this idea that, oh, we'll sort it out by smashing the gangs, when you could sort of tell that that was going to be a stretch at best?
I guess it was an easy one for an election campaign.
It's a soundbite.
Yeah, I think it's
And
tough.
did you think any of it was true or not?
I think there are multiple factors here, and I do think that the weather is one factor actually that can be mentioned, that if there are better weather, calmer days, people are more likely to take that risky journey. But of course, there are lots of factors here. We've got gangs, we've got a whole network, and to get into that, infiltrate it and take it away, and also build allegiances with our allies and make sure that we can actually build relationships where we are really turning these people away and dealing with a more effective way is quite a challenging, multi-variable problem.
So you think the weather is an excuse or not?
I think it's one factor. I think it's one of many.
But I mean, surely my thought would be if it's bright and clear, you can see the boats coming more easily. So we should be able to deal with them and turn them back.
I guess it's challenging. What can we really do when people are already on that journey without putting them at risk? Because that would also then become a human rights issue. So I think there are lots of factors here. How do we do this safely?
Well, okay.
We just need to deter them completely, because once they're already on that journey or close to our shores, it becomes really challenging.
It's not impossible that the next Prime Minister is Nigel Farage. It's not impossible at all. And Tim, if that happens, your party is going to have to really do something that makes a difference. But what is the something?
Well, I think it will probably come to the boil before then, to be honest, because I don't want to be over dramatic, and I'm going to choose my words carefully, but these aren't just potentially illegal migrants coming into our country. Nigel Farage has described this as a national security issue. And I'll tell you what I'm about to propose to you as a way of dealing with it may sound unthinkable, Jeremy, but what is more unthinkable is that and I hope what I'm saying now is not going to happen, but if in 3 months, in 6 months or 12 months' time, some kind of serious terrorist incident happens in this country and it's linked to people who've crossed the Channel, the British people will have a reaction then and they will want something unthinkable done. But Dominic Cummings, the former advisor to Prime Minister Boris Johnson, he did an interview last week, I think with Sky News. And he said, you've got to make a policy where you say no one who crosses the Channel illegally will set foot in Britain again. And you put the Royal Navy into the Channel, they have an ability to do it in other parts of the world, and you turn the boats back.
Okay, all right. Well, hang on. You turn the boats back and then one sinks and 3 babies drown. And then you've got a major political crisis and the Prime Minister has to resign.
That is certainly a possibility, but I trust the Royal Navy not to allow that to happen. The Royal Navy are very skilled at these sort of operations. They've rescued people in harm's way.
You send them back to France, they can't see them all the way, can they?
No,
so by the way, they won't be allowed to port in France either. So
you obviously got to either have cooperation with the French, or you move people to an offshore processing centre like Rwanda or somewhere closer. But once you make the statement, no person will land in Britain again, of course, the first few days after that policy is announced are going to be very difficult. Very difficult. But if you announce a policy and you stick at it, eventually, And quite quickly, I think, people will stop trying to cross the channel.
I don't know about
and,
that.
And just, can I say one final thing? Sorry.
Go on.
I'm not dismissing what you say about people dying in the channel, but people are dying in the channel already. The best way of stopping people dying in the channel is to kill this crossing happening in the first place.
Okay, pause, because I'm going to get Julie in Somerset. Julie, hi.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Is the weather an excuse?
Oh, thank you.
It is. Yeah, it's lovely. It's just an excuse. We have to do what the gentleman on the right-hand side was saying. We have to smash the gangs. I voted Labour because he said he was going to smash the gangs. Nobody says it's going to be easy, but we have to sort it out.
Well, wait a minute. Tim wasn't saying that. He was saying something much more practical. And it turns out that Labour have had a year or so and we're not smashing the gangs. So, Julie, maybe you were hoodwinked there.
No, I was to vote Labour, yeah, but we must get on to it. Mr. Keir Starmer must pull his socks up and get on with it. It's costing us millions of pounds putting these people up in hotels. I am 70 years old. I am rotten with osteoarthritis, and I have to wait for 6 months for a knee replacement. That money should be going into education or the NHS.
OK, Julie, thank you. That's a good point, Io. The fury is tangible.
Yeah, Julie, thank you for the compliment. But also, I can hear your thoughts there. And I do agree that we do need to do something about it. I don't think it's necessarily about blaming this Labour government like you voted for them. But the highest boat crossing wasn't under the Conservative government in 2022. Obviously, we're on track to get there, but we're not there yet. We're halfway through the year. There's a possibility of implementing new policies that might mitigate it.
What about Tim's idea? I'm just saying, well, I thought we'd already, I think the last government had said you won't be a citizen of this country if you come here illegally. Again, I'm not sure you're allowed to say that. That's probably a human rights thing going on. I don't know.
I think we need to look at different ways of doing it. I'm not ruling out the fact that we need to make sure we can turn people away. But the fact I'm worried about is that this puts risk at people's lives. At the end of the day, that is something that doesn't align with our morality as a country. I don't think everyone would be happy if we heard that we've got culpable for children's deaths.
Yeah, and of course one of the things we've had...
But by allowing the trade to continue, people are dying.
Yeah.
By not ending the trade, we are increasing the likelihood of people dying.
But that's not directly your fault if people are dying. It becomes your fault if you have a pushback policy. And by the way, the RNLI have already said that if people are in trouble, they're going to rescue them. So you'll have to tell them not to do that. Yeah. That's their job.
I'm not saying that, Jeremy. Of course, you rescue people.
Right, and you bring them.
You don't bring them on shore.
But of course, that's the RNLI. It's a British institution. Where else do they take them?
Well, they could take them to a Royal Navy post offshore. Then the Royal Navy will then take them either back to France or take them to an offshore process.
Yeah, I think it's
or to an offshore processing centre.
It's a half-baked idea, and it's not.
It's not a half-baked idea.
It is. It's not to be derogatory. It's not a fully functioning model. I do think we need something. I do think that the Labour government does need to do something because we are on track to hit 50,000 this year, which will beat the highest year for the Conservatives, and that is worrying for everyone.
Well, Tim's idea, although it may be half-baked, is going to be very attractive to people because the mechanics of this are, if you come across the channel, you've got to be stopped before you get to our shores. That's the most people who watch it think logically that must be the case. It's working out how you do that without imperiling people is the really difficult thing.
Well, the one thing I think you're underappreciating, we commit masses of resources to it. We commit the might of the Royal Navy to it. And once we have stopped the boats, literally, from getting to Britain, the trade dries up very quickly. I'm not pretending that the first few days that you do this, it won't be the top story probably all over Europe and most of the world. It'll be dramatic. Yeah. There may even be deaths, you're right, Jeremy. But if we stop it happening, which I think this would do, we stop a lot of deaths happening in the longer run, and also we kill this incredibly expensive trade that stops. Who was the lady we just heard from?
Julie.
That stops the anger that British people legitimately have that they're not getting their medical treatment, etc., because we're paying these sort of bills.
Simon in Surrey, hi.
Hi, good morning, panel.
Well, we've moved from the weather onto this, but what do you think? Is it the weather that's doing it, or just a failure of policy?
I just think that we're just wasting so much money giving to the French to actually police their borders, which they don't do. And what would it cost for one of their police officers to just get a knife and puncture their boats and stop them from coming over? Because it's to be honest, Jeremy, it is just a joke now, a real joke.
The French police are accused of standing by, and we can see some of them there. I think they had a problem with stabbing the boats. They were told not to or something. And there was a moment where a police officer who tried to do that was attacked, and then they had to...
Yeah.
I don't know. But maybe you're right, Simon. But the thing is, if you're the French police, or France generally, it's in your interest to let them go. Fundamentally, that's our problem here.
Yeah.
Because it then becomes our problem, not theirs. So we're never going to, I don't think, get the French to really understand that.
Yeah. I would like to agree with the gentleman on your panel.
Tim,
Hello?
Yeah, it was Tim, yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with everything he said. He could be a very good Prime Minister.
OK, thank you. I think this is going to be the issue of the next election, or maybe sooner.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's so polarising. I think even Tim and I agree that we both want to see the boats crossing stop. I think it's about how do we do it in a way that isn't unethical, doesn't cost lives, but ultimately gives us the results we need, because we cannot continue as a country to pay this cost. So I think we agree with what needs to be done. It's just how do we do it in a proportionate, safe way?
All right, Elaine, hang on. Elaine in Edinburgh. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you.
Great. Where are we on this? Firstly, is the weather an excuse?
No. Weather's an excuse for drying your washing, and that's about it.
I see. So, in other words, it is an excuse.
My sister and I went to Sokale for a weekend. Absolutely beautiful place. Came outside, we were going to take the train. The train station was absolutely full.
Really?
Of young men waiting to come. There was two people, a female and a male, organising them all, getting them all off the train and onto coaches and down to the water. The police were there. The lady had to close her shop because she was terrified to keep it open. And we spoke to the police and said, well, what do you do about, what are you doing? They were just all standing there. There was a lot of them, vans, cars, just all standing, watching this going on. Now, how at that point can they not do? Why at that point can they not do something about it?
I missed something. Who are these people who are in the station? You say they're migrants or what? Migrants,
hundreds and hundreds of migrants.
Being moved from one place to another?
Coming in on a train from wherever they came from, getting picked up at the train station by these by this male and female, loaded onto coaches, and taken to I assume, to the shore. And I spoke to the police and said, look, how is this possible? And the answer to us from them was, it's not our problem, it's everybody's problem.
Wow.
So surely it's the land in France, it's their problem. So at that point, that's where it should be stopped. Not here, not putting them in all these hotels. Edinburgh is awash with migrants.
Is that right?
The kids are scared to go out. Yeah. The kids are scared to go out. They're following. They followed my granddaughter around the supermarket, and I at that point had to say to them, to stop it.
We don't know if those are the people on boats or whatever, but thank you, Elaine, for that. Later, it's the papers and everything else. Find out why BBC boss Tim Davie is calling for a rise in the licence fee. After the break, we're asking if you would drink only one glass of wine a year.